The night that just passed will be studied in military academies for generations, not because of what happened, but because of what nearly happened. And what the intelligence assessment circulating through Western capitals tonight suggest is still very much on the table. According to multiple sources tracking American military deployments in the Persian Gulf theater, the United States has assembled the largest concentration of offensive military capability in the Middle East since the opening phase of Operation Iraqi Freedom in March 2003. 3 carrier strike groups are now operating within strike range of Iranian territory. B-2 stealth bombers have deployed to Diego Garcia. Tomahawk cruise missile inventories across the submarine and surface fleet have been brought to wartime levels. And the targeting packages, the specific coordinates, the specific facilities, the specific bunker complexes have been finalized, briefed to the National Security Council, and, if reports are accurate, presented to the President for authorization. The question is no longer whether the United States has the capability to attack Iran. The question is whether the decision makers in Washington understand what happens after the attack, the cascading, accelerating, uncontrollable sequence of events that every comparable military operation in modern history has triggered, and that no amount of planning, no quantity of precision-guided munitions, and no volume of confident Pentagon briefings can prevent. Because what happens after the United States attacks Iran is not a military question. It is a systems question. A question about how interconnected networks of alliances, economies, energy supplies, and nuclear arsenals respond when a critical node in the system is struck. And the answer, drawn from every analogous case in the past 60 years, is that they respond in ways that nobody predicted, nobody wanted, and nobody could control. Let me walk you through the sequence as the structural evidence predicts it, step by step. The first 72 hours would be dominated by the American air campaign, the most concentrated aerial bombardment since 2003. Stealth aircraft, cruise missiles, and precision-guided munitions targeting nuclear enrichment facilities at Natanz and Fordow, air defense networks, Revolutionary Guard command centers, missile production facilities, naval bases, and political leadership bunkers. The initial damage would be significant. Above-ground military infrastructure would be severely degraded. But the targets that matter, the facilities buried under mountains, the mobile missile launchers, the dispersed drone assembly cells, those targets would survive because they were designed over 45 years to survive exactly this scenario. Within hours of the first American strikes, Iran would execute its prepared response plan, a plan that has been rehearsed, refined, and coordinated across the entire Iranian alliance network for over a decade. The response would not be a single retaliatory strike. It would be a simultaneous, multi-axis activation spanning from the Mediterranean to the Arabian Sea. Ballistic missiles targeting American bases in Iraq, Bahrain, Qatar, and Kuwait. Anti-ship missile salvos targeting naval vessels in the Persian Gulf. Mining operations in the Strait of Hormuz. Hezbollah rocket barrages against northern Israel from pre-positioned launchers in southern Lebanon. Houthi missile and drone attacks on shipping in the Red Sea and Bab el-Mandeb. Iraqi militia attacks on the Green Zone in Baghdad and on American logistics convoys throughout Iraq. The strategic objective is overwhelming simultaneity, not to defeat the American military in any single engagement, but to create so many simultaneous crises across so many theaters that the American command structure cannot formulate a coherent response. The oil shock would begin within the first week. The Strait of Hormuz, through which 21% of global oil supply passes daily, would be contested, if not fully closed, then severely disrupted by Iranian mines, fast attack boats, and coastal missile batteries. Oil prices would spike to between $150 and $300 per barrel within days. At those prices, the global airline industry enters crisis. Shipping costs double. Food prices spike across the developing world. Stock markets crash. The economic disruption radiates outward from the Gulf to every economy on Earth within 2 weeks. Now here is where the Iraq and Afghanistan precedents become relevant and where the analysis shifts from tactical to structural. The United States invaded Iraq in 2003, believing the operation would last months. It lasted 20 years and cost over $4 trillion. The United States invaded Afghanistan, believing the Taliban could be destroyed in a year. The war lasted 2 decades, and the Taliban outlasted the invasion. In both cases, the initial military operation succeeded spectacularly, and the occupation that followed consumed orders of magnitude more resources, more lives, and more institutional capacity than anyone had projected. The lesson is unambiguous. American military force can destroy any target on Earth, but it cannot control the consequences of that destruction. Iran is not Iraq and is not Afghanistan. It is larger, more populous, more geographically defensible, more militarily capable, and more civilizationally cohesive than either. But the structural pattern is identical. The initial strike succeeds, the consequences spiral, and the cost of managing those consequences exceeds the cost of the original objective by a factor that makes the entire enterprise unsustainable. Now here is the reversed outcome that nobody in Washington is discussing. An American attack on Iran may produce an outcome that is the precise opposite of its intended objective. The stated objective of military action against Iran is the degradation of Iranian military capability and the containment of Iranian regional influence. The likely actual outcome, based on the structural evidence, is the dramatic enhancement of both. An Iran that survives an American military assault emerges from the experience with its deterrent credibility permanently validated. Every country in the region and every country in the world will have witnessed that Iran absorbed the full force of American military power and survived as a functioning state. That demonstration is worth more to Iran's strategic position than any weapon system. It transforms Iran from a regional power that might be vulnerable to military coercion into a regional power that has proven it is not. The narrative of resistance, the most powerful mobilizing force in Iranian political culture, would be validated not by rhetoric, but by demonstrated survival under fire. Iranian alliance solidarity would be strengthened rather than broken. Countries hedging between Washington and Tehran would accelerate their movement toward Tehran, having concluded that alignment with a state that can survive American military power is safer than alignment with a state whose military power has been proven insufficient to achieve its objectives. This is the pattern. This is what happened after every American military intervention in the Middle East. Iraq was supposed to demonstrate American power. It demonstrated American limitations. Afghanistan was supposed to prove American resolve. It proved that resolve has an expiration date. An attack on Iran would be designed to contain Iranian influence. It would expand Iranian influence by demonstrating that American military supremacy cannot translate into strategic outcomes. Prediction 1. If the United States attacks Iran, the conflict will not end with the air campaign. It will escalate into a regional war involving multiple state and non-state actors across at least 5 simultaneous theaters: the Persian Gulf, Iraq, Lebanon, Yemen, and the Red Sea, each requiring separate American military responses that collectively exceed available force capacity. Prediction 2. The economic disruption caused by the Strait of Hormuz crisis will produce a global recession within 3 to 6 months, generating domestic political pressure in the United States that will undermine public support for continued military operations long before the strategic objectives are achieved. Prediction 3. Iran will emerge from the conflict with its strategic position enhanced rather than degraded, its deterrent credibility validated, its alliance network solidified, its diplomatic standing elevated among the developing world, and its narrative of civilizational resistance against imperial aggression confirmed by the event itself. The attack designed to weaken Iran will strengthen it. The operation designed to contain Iranian influence will expand it. This is the reversed outcome. This is the pattern, and the pattern has never been wrong. The world stands tonight at the edge of a decision that cannot be undone. Once the first missile is fired, the sequence begins, and the sequence, as 60 years of evidence demonstrates, does not end where the planners say it will. It ends where the structure of the conflict takes it. And the structure of this conflict, traced through the precedents of Iraq, Afghanistan, Vietnam, and every comparable case, takes it to a place that is longer, costlier, more destructive, and more strategically counterproductive than anything the advocates of military action are willing to acknowledge publicly. The weapons are loaded, the targets are selected, the decision awaits, and the only thing standing between this moment and the cascade that follows is the question of whether the people making the decision have studied the pattern, and whether studying the pattern is enough to prevent it from repeating once more.